Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Have You Got 10 Minutes podcast with me, Nikki Tapper. I'll be chatting with household names from business, sport, music, TV, and because they're busy people, hence the title. We get a snippet of how they got into their careers, what they're currently up to, and their favourite music track. So let's talk to this episode's guest, TV sports personality and broadcaster, Nesta McGregor. Nesta, have you got 10 minutes?
11 for you, Nikki. 11.
Easy now. Thank you so much. Nesta McGregor, a voice and a face that has become familiar to us over the last 5-10 years, I think now, of you being a sports news reporter on BBC in the main. But just tell us a little bit, though, about how you even got into the career of being a sports person and sports correspondent.
Yeah, I know we've only got 10 minutes, but I'm going to keep this as brief as I can. But it's so unusual that I feel that if you don't have the details, you won't really realise. So, Nikki, I went to college to learn to fix photocopiers, and I did that for a year. I used to go into offices and I used to fix fax machine and photocopiers. I was dating a girl at the time, and she said, "You don't really like what you do. The BBC are offering jobs to become journalists. Why don't you go for one?" And I looked at her and I stared at her and I said, "I have no interest in becoming a journalist. I've never done a day's journalism in my life. And it's the BBC. There's no one that looked like me, sounds like me on it. It's not for me." She said, No. It's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for people who've not studied journalism. I might be able to approach storytelling and journalism from a unique angle. And I promise you, it's a long story, but let me get through it. And I used to sit on her dad's computer and play Football Manager for hours. And one day she came, she sat beside me. She said, "Turn off the game, fill in the CV." And she sat there with me. We filled in the CV. A few days later, I got a call saying, "No, thank you. You haven't been successful." And I thought, well, there we go. Then turns out someone got sick and they was shortlisting 10 people. I might have been 11, 12, whatever on the list. But they said, "You know what, let's give this guy a chance." Nikki, I went to the interview. I did the interview and they said, "Yeah, we knew you wasn't right for this. No, thank you." I promise you, a few weeks later, my phone rang again and it was a woman, and I would name check her. Her name's Angela Clark. And Angela rang me and she said, "Nesta, we're going to put you through to the interview process. We don't think you're going to get the job, but the next time it comes up, this might prepare you a little better." And I promise you, from she said that to me, I'm a kind of person, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to try and prove you wrong. Yeah. So I went to the interview and I sat on the train and I read a newspaper from back to front. Good thing I did, because every question about news and current affairs was in that newspaper. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got anywhere near the BBC. I did it. Thank you, Angela Clark. I passed it. They put me on a traineeship. And would you believe, I think it's 20 years this year is how long I've... Yeah, I know I look young. Cocoa butter twice a day, before bed and first thing. So, yeah. And honestly, it's been...
brilliant.
It's been a whirlwind, but that is how I got in. By complete accident. It wasn't by design.
Well, I have to be honest, I think it was a God-ordained thing for you, because I just think the way that those all align up must be something supernaturally going on for you for all those things to correspond in the way that they have done. And you have, with your career, done so much that now you are a very familiar face, in particular for us on BBC television. And why the love for sports? Because you do everything when it comes to football, basketball. You were obviously at the Paris Olympic Games. You know, it's a good chunk of work on your CV.
Yeah. So again, if I tell you it's by accident, you're going to tell me I'm lying, Nikki. And whether it's divine intervention or not. So like you said, when I joined, I was doing news and current affairs. I did entertainment news for a while as well. And the BBC obviously moved its sport operation to Salford. I think it was just before the 2012 Olympics. And I clearly didn't want to make the move from London to Manchester. Then I have a boss. Again, I'm going to shout her out. Angela Clark is a black woman, by the way. And the next person I'm about to shout out is also a black woman. And her name's Debbie Ramsey. She's now head of news at Channel 5, I believe. And she was my boss. And whenever anybody came to ask me to do something for another department, Debbie would say yes before she even asked me, because she knew that I would say no. And Debbie's philosophy is say yes now, worry about it later, if that makes sense. So she's the first person that got me commissioned some sport reporting roles. I really enjoyed it. I was scared. I was petrified again. I don't think I necessarily sound like anyone on the BBC. If you heard me do football commentary for Five Live or BBC Final Score, I give it my own unique Nesta twist. And again, if it wasn't for Debbie, I probably wouldn't be doing this today because she believed in me and pushed me harder than I probably pushed myself. And also, I was born in Jamaica. And when I came over here at 9 years of age, I looked, I sounded, I smelled everything differently. The kids, whenever I spoke in class, the kids used to look in my mouth and wait for me to say something. And the only time that I felt one of them and not different was at playtime when we used to play football. And from I joined that football team, football's always given me a sense of we're all the same and we've all got the same goal. So I love my sport. I traveled all around the world. So it's not just football, like you say, American football, tennis, basketball, the Olympics. I do it all.
And what has been a real joy of doing all of these different things? As you said, I think some of your strength and panache and resilience comes from possibly the Jamaican heritage. And as you said, the Jamaican motto is we're little but we're talawa. And I gather I hear that in you and seeing you. And in the time I've been doing radio presenting, I remember you, in fact, because we started in ways more or less around the same time. What has stood out for you that makes you think, yeah, this is why I'm needed in the industry and people like me need to be seen more and doing more?
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about my Jamaican heritage because for me, that's my drive. My dad's got 9 children and I was the only one he brought to England when he came over in the late 80s. I came over in 1991. And for me, that's like already winning the lottery. People always say, you should play the lottery. And I'm like, I've already won it because he brought me over here to pursue a different life. And every day I get up, I think about my brothers and sisters who haven't been given the opportunity. So I wasn't about to waste it. So I always studied in school and tried my very, very hardest. But to answer your question, my brother went out, again, Nikki, I sound like I make stuff up, true story. My brother went out on a date a few months ago with a girl. They were talking. Conversation must have got boring because they then got into family. I don't know why you do that on a first date. And she happened to be a journalist. And he went, oh, my brother's a journalist as well. And I promise you, Nikki, without missing a beat, she said, oh, Nesta McGregor works for the BBC. And he kind of looked at her and thought, please don't tell me that they've dated before. And she kind of went, no, he's the only black sports reporter I know. Yeah. And for me, a sentence like that is so important because I was always someone who hesitated going into schools and telling people about my story and, championing you can be anything you want to be. But I know how important representation is now. I know how much a young girl, boy, black, if you're sitting down and you're watching TV and you see someone that looks like you doing something, it's possible. Without that, if you only see someone in your family, I don't know, my dad, proudest man that I've ever been of someone, works for the local council and his job, Nikki, is to go and sweep the streets. And he once said to me that just go out and work and provide for your family. But I only saw people doing jobs like that. So that's why the target I set myself. Had I known politicians and bankers and brokers, do you know what I mean? Yes, I probably would have aspired to be like that. So for me, I do it because I know it's important. And any chance I get, I tell people, anything you can be, you want to be. And if you don't see it, go and be the example. And I'm hoping that I'm the example.
You certainly are the example. As I said, you're pretty busy. You're there all around the world, coming back from Dublin when at the time of the recording of this, England have just beaten Northern Ireland in the
Republic of Ireland.
Republic of Ireland officially. Yes, make sure you do it officially, Nikki. The Republic of Ireland. But one of the key things I wanted to ask you was what you've done more recently with one of my teams. Yes, I have two, West Bromwich Albion and the Arsenal. And you have featured and always commentated a lot on what Arsenal have done. And in recent weeks, there's been this new publication, Black Arsenal, the impact of black players and how Arsenal is one of the key Premiership teams that has such a genuine array of black British support. What was that like for you? And do you believe that Arsenal have set a standard and a tone?
Yeah. And again, often struggle between Nesta McGregor, the BBC journalist who's supposed to be impartial, and the Nesta McGregor that exists outside of all of that. Now, I got no qualms in saying that I'm an Arsenal fan. I don't think, a sports reporter should pretend he doesn't have an allegiance to a team. But if I'm given the opportunity, I will report impartially on Arsenal. Now, for me, I didn't know why I supported Arsenal until that event that you just spoken about reinforced it. But again, I'll go back to me coming from Jamaica, looking for people in England that looked like me at a time where the population probably wasn't as diverse as it was today. And I remember my friends always used to watch football and they all had teams and I didn't have one and I wanted one. And I turned it on and I saw Ian Wright on TV.
That is so bizarre. That is how I got into Arsenal.
Yeah, but Nikki, we're not alone. I saw he had the high top fade.
Yeah.
He had the gold teeth.
Yeah.
And when he scored and he did the bogle, to a lot of people, it was, what was that dance? To me, I was like, oh my, he's one of us. That's me. That's what my uncle looked like, my big brother looked like, my big cousin looked like. So I started supporting Arsenal because of that. But when I went to this event, and big up Jeanette Quatchy, she hosted the event, was comparing, and she kind of basically said what Arsenal did was not only did it sign black players from what I would call not the local community, because I don't think there is such a thing, but places in London where there were probably a diverse mix-up of people, but particularly black Caribbeans.
Yes.
But when they signed them, they didn't stop them from being them or try to shape them. So if you remember the likes of David Rocastle, Kevin Campbell, Ian Wright, they were allowed to be exactly the same people that they probably were in a dance down the road before they signed for Arsenal or after. They was allowed the hairstyles. Big up to Paul Davis as well, who came through the youth ranks. Now, I spoke to Paul Davis at the event who says he didn't realise the impact, like we've just spoken about, me and you supporting Arsenal, until he quit the game. So this was people seeing people from the Caribbean or of Caribbean heritage who looked like them, who acted like them, who was allowed to be themselves, if that makes any sense. And Arsenal's prided itself. We've seen them collaborate with people. We've seen them design kits which reflect that. The event I went to, it might sound patronizing, but they served rice and peas and jerk chicken. And for me, it was cooked by people who know the recipe, Nikki.
Let's just leave it at that. I'm
sure you know what I mean.
Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that.
It wasn't tokenism.
No.
It was authentic. And they do it with love, I believe.
Nesta, as I said, I know you got things going on. We could talk forever. I think I may have to come back to you at some stage just to carry on the conversation. But it's been an absolute joy. And thank you for really helping ensure that voices like yours and faces that look like you and young men in particular that look like you can be successful in what they're doing. Before I let you go, I know you're like, Nikki, my head, I haven't had time to think. But I do like to ask my guests as we finish off, what's a favourite track of theirs or a piece of music that they go to when they need that little boost and little, I can do this, I've got this, and this makes me feel good. So what is your favourite piece of music?
You just said the words, I feel good. Listen, I'm showing my age. I used to cuss my dad for playing this music on a Sunday when he was cooking, and now I'm playing it as I'm cooking on a Sunday. There's only one song really. It's Beres Hammond. It's I Feel Good. What tune?
Nesta McGregor, bless you. Thank you for giving me your 10 minutes.
Pleasure.
So many thanks to my guest, sports presenter Nesta McGregor. Do check him out on all social media platforms and follow him. And do the same for me. Go to Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn. Look for Nikki Tapper, NIKKITAPPER. Until next time, thank you for listening to Have You Got 10 Minutes? Have You Got 10 Minutes is a production presented and produced by me, Nikki Tapper, for NT Events Limited and Nikki Tapper Limited.